Welcome back. Excited once again to be joined by Preston Diamond. I am Kevin Ring. And Press, today we're going to continue on our conversation about problems that bidding and quoting workers' compensation cannot fix.
Let's talk about an audit, a no overcharge audit.
You know, I always think it's fascinating if agents would ask an employer a question about how many times they've had an IRS audit. And the answer is probably going to be, once or twice in their life, and then follow that up with the question of, did they, get expert help, attorneys, accountants to help them with that audit? And the answer is almost always going to be yes. But employers are left to fend for themselves at their workers' comp premium audit, where maybe on a year-to-year basis, there's not as much money at stake, but we've certainly seen incorrect audits in the six-figure plus range, and just bidding and quoting your workers' comp doesn't make your premium audit correct. That requires work in making sure that you're keeping records correctly. It requires work in making sure that you put those records together for the premium auditor, so that all of the information is there for them to do the perfect premium audit. And we know from our experience working with agents, and other things that more than 75% of premium audits are incorrect. The vast majority of those errors result in employers paying more than they should, rather than the insurance company collecting less than what they owe. So, if you're not taking control of that audit, you're going to pay too much.
Very good. So the heart of it is zero incidences. Make sure our employers care about their employees.
Yeah, I mean, corporate culture is something that's very difficult for insurance agents to have a big impact on, but I would say more for agents, it's looking for businesses that have a positive corporate culture. If you talk to a business owner and they tell you that all of their workers' comp claims are fraudulent, then they're kind of telling you that they think their employees are criminals, and that doesn't really bode well for a positive corporate culture. If the employer doesn't like their employees, the employees probably reciprocate that feeling. And when you get into things like recovery at work, there are some things that an employer may be able to do to kind of lever people to come back to work when they don't want to, but it really requires cooperation from the injured employees. And if the employees don't want to come back, if they're excited, they're getting some time away from these evil people they work for, it's going to be very, very difficult to have a successful workers' comp program. So that positive corporate culture is critical.
Yeah, which leads right into when that happens, the production line keeps humming. And part of it is keep business up and running.
Right. And I think, it's so important for insurance agents to keep in mind the role that they play in protecting their clients' profit and loss. And when it comes specifically to workers' compensation, when an employee is injured and out of their full duty job, then the employer is going to have to make adjustments. And you'll hear a lot of people talk about this as indirect costs that are associated with an employee injury. Are they having to pay, overtime to existing workers? Are jobs getting delivered late, which may result in, penalties or harm to your reputation? Are you having to, bring in temporary workers that may be both more expensive and less productive? And when you take control of your workers' comp, fewer employees are going to get injured in the first place. When they do get injured, they're going to be back at their full duty job more quickly, and you can eliminate a lot of those costs.
And that leads right into, obviously, we're keeping the experience modification factor both correct and reduce, reduce, reduce.
You know, employers and agents, often have a very binary view of the experience mod, which is to say that, above one is bad and below one is good. And, certainly below one is better than above one. But, does the employer know that the information on their experience mod is correct? I just looked at an experience mod last week where two of the three policy periods on the mod had the exact same payroll. And on top of them being the exact same, which was a clear red flag that it was incorrect, the agent says, oh, they have about $800,000 in payroll, but there was about a third of that on the experience mod. But had that employer not been working with a certified work comp advisor, would anyone have ever known any different? Probably not, because the likelihood is that no one would have ever even looked at the mod worksheet because, oh, okay, our experience mod is, whatever it is this year, that stinks. They're not actually looking to make sure that information is correct, which means that, you have no idea, what's happening now, what's happened in the past, what the future is going to look like. And, if you aren't paying attention to those things, then it's going to be very difficult to build a plan to make it better, which leads us directly into number 16 about building that blueprint to get people to their minimum experience mod.
Yep, exactly. And that's when you hire them, that's where it starts like that. So creating a hiring policy. Let's talk about that.
It is simple, although not necessarily easy, to help your clients build a hiring process that can prevent them from hiring someone that is not capable of doing the work. And this involves helping them implement a conditional offer of employment process where the job offer contains a condition that you have to be mentally and physically able to do substantially all of the job duties of the position. It is simple. It's just not easy for an agent to help an employer build a hiring process that will prevent them from hiring employees that are not capable of doing the work. And this involves implementing the conditional offer of employment, where the employer's offer of employment to a new hire says, you've got the job, but the condition on that is that you have to be able to do substantially all of the essential functions of the job. Now, there's some work to be done potentially by the employer to identify those essential functions if they've never done that. But then the next step is to send that new hire to the doctor. What doctor are they going to go to? They're going to go to the doctor that we identified, in our prior episode. We were talking about the importance of finding the right doctor that understands occupational medicine. And when employers implement a hiring process like this, it eliminates people who just simply are not capable of doing the work they're being hired to do. And too many employers, especially today in the more difficult labor environment, are bypassing a lot of their hiring processes, and they're shortcutting things because they just want to get people on the job, and that can be a very, very costly mistake.
Yeah, for sure. So train employees and supervisors. Workers' comp is a great employer, paid employee benefit. And employees have to understand that, don't they?
Well, they do. And some of this ties back to our conversation earlier about, training employees about how workers' compensation works. Because, do employees understand that, workers' compensation is going to cover, 100% of their medical costs? Do they, understand how it's going to help cover at least, most of their wages if they get, more seriously injured and they have to be out of work. But I would say on the other side of that, how workers' compensation isn't there to be abused, and honestly, workers' compensation is not lucrative. I feel like a lot of attorneys brag about how much money they get back for people, but that's not workers' compensation. If you hear about someone that received a big chunk of change from workers' compensation, there is an exceptionally high probability that they also suffered an incredibly serious injury. Now, that is not to say that people don't extract money from the workers' comp system that they shouldn't, and it's more money than they should have received. But the whole grand bargain of workers' comp is that your ability to sue your employer is limited in exchange for it being a largely no fault system. So getting employees and supervisors plugged into how workers comp can help you when you suffer an injury is a big part of the process, and serves to again tamp down on the involvement of attorneys.
Yeah, and when employers build a continuous downward spiral of work comp costs, they become attractive to insurance companies.
Yeah, and this ties together our last two things on our list. And so, when your premium audit is correct, when you're hiring the right people, when an injured employees are going to the right doctor and being returned to work rather than left to sit at home, your experience mod, an employer's experience mod, is going to have to decrease. Their results improve, and that is going to drive their costs down. And then talking about making them more attractive to insurance companies. Every insurance company has their particular appetite of what kind of businesses they like, but the better your results, which is almost always the result of a strong process, the more insurance companies you're going to have access, that are going to want your business. And that really takes us to the end game of this whole list, which is here are all these problems that bidding and quoting your workers' comp can't solve. Well, when can bidding and quoting legitimately help you reduce what an employer is paying for workers' comp? Well, when they have a process, when they've controlled everything there is to control, and then you can go out into the marketplace and have the insurance companies fight over the business rather than having to beg them to take it when everything in the program is a mess.
Beep, 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 beep. Good job, young man.
Well, thanks for joining me. Thanks everyone for listening, and we look forward to seeing you next time.